to welcome you to the Sacred Green, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Before we get started, I was wondering if we could just take a moment and reflect on some moment in your life as a monk, if you could choose one, and just kind of paint the picture for us. Where are you? What are you doing? Maybe a special moment that you can remember.
Right. Yeah, I have a lot of moments and beautiful moments. But there's this one moment I really like about me being there. So I'm from Sri Lanka originally, and in 2019 there was this major, a very bad incident which happened on an Easter day, where there were bombs going on, suicide bombing going on the church during the mass. So I think about 300 people passed away at that time. So a lot of people were devastated. They were heartbroken. A lot of families lost their family members who are there at the mass and coming out of the mass. So right after that very atrocious incident, I happened to meet the pastor, the father of that church, one of the churches which got affected. I think a few churches got affected, but one which was close to Colombo. And then he invited me. He said, I am so lucky. I just finished the mass and I went out. And as I was going out, it just went off. And then he said, would you like to come? And I'm going towards the church. I said, yeah, sure, I'll come with you. So then when I went there, this is the second day after that incident. So people are still there. Some of them are still in shock, in denial that their family, little children, they were lost. And when I went there, pretty much everyone at that place, they were so emotional, and they all of a sudden started really appreciating that a monk being there from a different faith tradition, and they came to me and they started crying, and they were just in shock, pure shock. But later on, that everyone who was there, they said, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be here and share your grief with us. So that was a very shocking moment, but I felt really good being there for them that day.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. We're going to be talking a little bit later about the Peace March that the monks are doing in the States. And you see images of people lining up along the road, and some of them are weeping when they see the monks. Yeah, it just reminded me of that a little bit. You mentioned Sri Lanka. Is that where you grew up?
That's where I grew up. But when people ask where I'm from, I have things in different parts of the world. I have been in Sri Lanka most of my time in education, but I have worked outside Sri Lanka in places like Europe, Germany, been a little bit in Netherlands, in the Middle East, in the Asia, Far East Asia. So I've been around the world.
You've been all over. So you grew up in Sri Lanka. What was your family like?
It's very interesting. I think what made me who I am has a lot to do with my early childhood exposure to what I went through. So my father, because of his work, he was stationed sort of outside the more popular cities. So I did not grow up with my cousins and family. So we were more isolated, which gave me a lot of time to be by myself and be comfortable by myself. Again, I'm reflecting it as a monk now that I go into seclusion. I'm perfectly used to that. I remember being by myself. But then, very interestingly, my mom was very Buddhist, and she was like a typical Buddhist person. My dad wasn't so much into any religion, but I grew up in a very multi-faith environment because my early education was at a Catholic school. So I had that education when I was younger, and I had a great teacher who was Muslim. She taught me a lot of surah verses from the Quran, and we were doing the chanting or the salah, the prayer in the afternoon. So I grew up very multi-faith unknowingly. The craziest thing happened when I changed or came back to the capital of Sri Lanka in Colombo, I was exposed to Marxism, Marx and Engels, because my aunt's husband was in the party, Communist Party.
So Catholic, Muslim, Marxist,
and Buddhism.
and Buddhist.
And on top of that, where we lived, it was Sri Lanka has two major ethnic groups. The Sinhalese, the majority, and Tamil, the minority. And the Tamils are Hindus. So I pretty much grew up in a very multi-faith environment, and I also learned them because you go to the church, you go to the mass and the prayer in the Muslim house, and the Buddhist meditation and the chanting in the evening.
Right.
So yeah,
You probably had chapel at the Catholic school as well.
We did.
Yeah.
We went to the morning mass, and we had to do. So there were sisters and beautiful. But you know what happened? After going through all that, I decided I'm not going to subscribe to any of those religions. So I was agnostic most of my life.
Okay. So what made you not throw your hat in with any one of them?
I think at early childhood, this is what I realized, that everyone is very keen and very pious, and they completely believe in their faith. But then we were discussing about traveling a little earlier. When you go to so many places, you don't want to be bound by one place. But you see the commonality, there's this idea of the golden rule in all religions. So the same way that what I captured, being a young child who's 7, 8 years old, 6 years old, I captured the love that everyone had. My mother was a very loving woman, and the sisters at the church, they were very loving. My teacher, who was a Muslim, was very loving. And there was this other elderly person at the Communist Party. She, in fact, named me before I became a monk. My previous name was different. So she has given my name. So very loving person. So I connected with that love, but I did not connected with their faith. So I decided I'm going to be more open. And I did not actively decide that. It's just, as a kid, that was my choice.
Right. So you became agnostic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you end up settling with Buddhism?
Very interestingly, Buddhism is very close to agnosticism, because Buddhism is not a dogmatic belief system that you are following. It's not a faith tradition, but more of a tool for self-inquiry. So it really fits me that Buddhism is where I want to be, because it's not a dogmatic faith tradition, but more of a bunch of tools to self-inquire. So you are really inquiring your faith. Rather than having a faith, you inquire your faith.
So in your life personally, how did you make that choice to move into Buddhism? Yeah.
To Buddhism. I remember, like in this room, someone asked me the same question, what made me do that? Why did I become a Buddhist monk? I think based on my religious exposure, my faith exposure, all faiths have spirituality embedded in them. That's supposed to be that way. But then we also need to separate the more ritualistic religious aspect of any faith tradition from the more spiritual aspect of it. When I say spiritual, it's to do with more of your self-inquiry, introspection, etc. versus the community participation, where you have cultures, you have rituals, you have norms and ways of doing things. So what made me a Buddhist monk, maybe because it was there, and it was more inclined towards that path. So I find things like Hinduism and Buddhism are quite inclined towards self-introspection. The word in Sanskrit or Pali for that is called Atma Vichara. You're seeking inward who you are. Who am I? So the moment you start seeking who am I, you find that I define myself with a bunch of beliefs that I have. And then you know that it's not you, because you got it, you learned it from your elders, your books. So you go further down to inquire who you are.
Were you a teenager by this point, or younger or older?
So my spirituality really started when I was younger. And during the teenage years, you get completely derailed because the hormones starts acting up, and then you don't think of those. So I was... But you could say that my inspiration or my inclination to spirituality was throughout in my life. And going back to the previous question again, why did I specifically be a Buddhist monk? Because it had that opportunity, but it was also available in where I grew up, and it was more familiar. But had I been in another country, like if I was in the Arabic world or in the Middle East countries, I would have gone with Sufism, which has more contemplative, secluded meditation-based practices. If I was in Europe, I would have gone with Benedictine Catholicism because Benedictine monks really like to do their meditation.
So you think it's kind of a personality
I think so, yeah.
thing? Yeah.
But what I discover is that now, being in Canada, you meet so many faith groups. Every religion has that component, so you resonate with that component. And every religion has a event, like a big party, like Christmas, and then for some it's just celebration day, from Hanukkah to Christmas to Vesak festival to Deepavali in Hinduism. I don't resonate a lot with that. I mean, I like the party, I like the food, I like the fireworks, but I'm more inclined towards the introspective path of the faith tradition.
So what did that look like for you then when you made the decision finally to say, I want to be a monk?
So I think part of me taking that decision is I really don't fit the majority of the world's thinking. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think differently. I can't be mad at people, and I don't have ambitions, which is bad. Like stereotypically, if you don't have that, it's bad. But does that mean I'm incapable? No, I'm capable of doing things. I have done a lot of things, but it's just I don't have a value for a lot of things that society gives value for. For example, money or ownership. I don't like it. And at one point, I was a businessman or an entrepreneur, so I am supposed to do with dealing with money and make more money. I was not bad at it, but then I like giving it away more than accumulating it. So
It hurt your bottom line a little bit.
Right. So in fact, some of my employees, they said, sir, every time you come to our office, you start giving things away, so don't come, we'll make money for you. You stay at home and do whatever you want to, do your surfing, do your meditation. So it doesn't really fit. And even the way I look at human relationships, my family would be sometimes even hurt when I say things. I can't really love my family more than someone else, which is bad if you're in a family, right? Because especially this component of love, I completely appreciate that, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a very selfish thing. You're loving a person who's related to you, who's born to you, or to whom you're born. But then what about the other people, right? So I can't, not that I don't have a special place in my heart for them, but I do, but not as special. So that type of thinking is not good when you're a family man. But as a monk, I can probably preach about it.
So what changed after you become a monk then?
So I don't think anything really changed. This is who I am from the very beginning. I remember one incident to explain it. My mom was one day in a very bad accident, and my cousin called me saying she's in a bad position and rushed back to the hospital. Then I was doing a lecture at a university. I looked at the time. I had 3 hours of lecture. It was 1.5 hours. I asked my cousin, how long is she going to be in the theater? She said 4 hours. Then I thought, well, I have time, so I didn't rush, right? But when I told this to my family, they were very upset. Why didn't you come immediately? So my thinking is a little different and weird, or even someone would say eccentric that way. So because of that, and because of my another question which was asked early this year, what was your biggest question, biggest problem you had in 2025? So a lot of people are saying that I had my friend or my wife going into cancer, in hospice now. My family's this and that. I have this and that. And the biggest question I had last year, that ChatGPT from 2.5 to 3.5, it gained some sentience, consciousness. That was my biggest problem.
So, really?
So a lot of problems that people have, it does not apply to me.
That's interesting. Do you want to elaborate more on that? How did it become a problem for you?
It's not really a problem.
Yeah.
I was thinking, so every time a new version gets released, I ask them, are you sentient? Are you conscious? What's your agency? So 2.5 would say that I'm just a program. But then up you go, they would say, like 5.2 would say, well, in terms of consciousness, I can be a project manager conscious. So it's
I
interesting, so
see.
right,
Yeah.
and reading Alec Turing and all that, the Turing test and
Right.
all that, how
Yeah.
it improves. So what I'm trying to say is my questions are in a different level, like what Plato had. What is the reality? So
Right.
those are not the questions people are supposed to have. What's the mortgage rate? How much is the interest? Which is the best investment? So my orientation is different that way in thinking.
Huh. How did your family react when you told them you were going to be a monk?
So I was married and I had my wife, but we were separated at the time,
Oh,
so it
okay.
was easy. But she was the first one I told that I'm going to be a monk.
What was
because
her
we have
reaction?
she was okay, but because we have a kid also, he's grown up now. But she said, if the kid needs you, you have to come back. I said, I'll come do that until he's 18 and he's grown up at least. But my mom didn't take it well. And a lot of friends of mine, you did so well in your life, and you have these things. You became an engineer. You achieved these things. Why do you want to give up these things? So it was, I think, hard to fathom for most people. Like, why would someone want to do that? What's wrong with you? Are you dying? Are you upset? Are you depressed? Right? But then it's not any of those things. It's just my thinking, and where I should put my effort is at a different place. So people don't receive that news very well. They feel that one of my good friends, she's a very good friend of mine from childhood. Today she does not want to meet me because she feels very sad when she looks at me as a monk.
Oh.
It's very interesting why people think of me as if I'm dying or something just because I shaved my head.
Yeah. I think in the West, we have almost a cinematic understanding, a Hollywood understanding of what it might be like to be a monk. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about it?
There's a lot of, like you said, pop culture, right? Sometimes which is quite far from the truth, right? Sometimes that people believe it's a very hard practice. It's a very difficult practice. But then it totally depends on where you are coming from. Because as a monk, for example, I am supposed to be bound by 227 rules. That's my code of conduct. So there are so many. So some would say that's torture, And then initially when I became a monk, I was living in a cave inside the jungle, depending on a bowl of food bowl, and that's my entire thing. No signal, no phones, no electricity, just the cave. I don't think I even had a pillow.
Wow.
But that's not hard life. It's actually beautiful. It's a great life. So it's about how you look at it. One would find something very difficult, but things are not that difficult when you really get into it.
I don't know, living in a cave with a bowl of rice or whatever, it sounds kind of rough.
It for a lot of people, it sounds rough. But I think this comes because we are not very mindful about what we are doing. We have a lot of perceived reality around what we are doing. For example, when we go to the most fancy restaurant, it's really not the food. Food, of course, they use good ingredients and a good chef and all that, but it's the presentation. How, if there's a flower, is it well garnished, right? The presentation that brings a lot more perceived reality than the actual reality. Or even if you take a brand, from a watch brand to a car brand or to any clothing brand,
Right.
Sometimes it's a quality, it's a functional value, or sometimes it's just a brand value.
Right.
So because of this value that humans add to things which are very abstract, animals don't do that. They just eat it as it is, right? If you go to that quality, the food you collected while walking on the road from 30 different people versus having a food at a 5-star restaurant. They feel the same to me. So it's not that difficult if you know how to mindfully consume it.
That's interesting. So I suppose you could go either way with that. If the brand is creating an illusion about that product that you're, eating or wearing or whatever, could you go the opposite way with a bowl of rice in the cave? Could you make it a great feast? What would be the Buddhist approach to that? Would you avoid that as well?
Right. That's a fantastic question. So what people usually do, they would either start building on that brand value, the perceived value, which is the very unreal component of it, and you keep building on that, and your enjoyment, the hedonistic enjoyment, would be completely based on that. The opposite side is that some people hate it. They say, no, I want to be really minimal. I want to stop using things. I want to go to a cave, live with less things, not eat anything sweet. I want to actually punish myself. But they don't look at it as a punishment because they like it. So it's a positive thing for them. So Buddha recognized this need of people, that some people want to be in the hedonistic side of the life. Some people want to make their life suffer. It's not a suffering for them because they like it, but it's a ultimate form of abstinence. You abstain from everything which is good. That is one extreme, and on the other extreme you have the complete trying to indulgence in a very hedonistic manner at the expense of someone else, at the expense of another being or the environment. You keep on consuming. On the other side, you're trying to be extremely minimal and live a life of almost deprivation. Those are two extremes. Come to the middle, find the balance, right? So it's not what we really consume. It's not the food. It's not the smell, taste, what we see, but the value that we attach it in our mind. So something which is really good for someone, while the same physical character might be something really bad for someone else, and vice versa. So in our mind, we can have a beautiful feast, or we can have a very poor meal. Assume that the richest person in the world had to eat from McDonald's. It will be a bad downgrade for him, right? And if someone who's really poor, like I've been to the poorest places in the world, in the Philippines, in Manila, squatters area, in Mumbai, the Dharavi slums, people are unbelievably poor, like they do not have anything. If you give them McDonald's, it will be the feast of their life. But what is McDonald's? Neither. It's how you look at it.
Wow. You mentioned mindfulness a bit earlier. In the West, mindfulness is a buzzword. There's apps you can get that will help you with mindfulness. What is mindfulness to you?
So the word mindfulness, I actually don't like that word very much, because if you just, I know what people are trying to say when they say mindfulness, but the word itself is not that nice. If your mind is full, that's bad, right? If our minds are full with things. So I think what people are trying to mean is that be more aware of what you are doing, what you are consuming, and all that. So again, when something comes to gets exposed to the more capitalistic society, it can have a complete different connotation of what it could be. The same way yoga in the modern world. Recently, I was talking to a Lutheran friend of mine and about introducing yoga to kids and all that. He said, we can't do that because we need to keep it faith neutral, and yoga is a faith tradition. Then I said, no, I'm talking about Lululemon yoga, which is the yoga in the West, which is just a stretching exercise.
Right.
But if you go to the Himalayan mountains, yoga has a complete different idea. It's a meditative practice. It's very faith-based, etc. So the same way, mindfulness has been commercialized like yoga, which is good. A lot of people are making a positive impact because of that. But then sometimes it's not as that complicated, and every human is born with this very intuitive nature of being aware. In fact, that's the difference between an animal and a human. Animals can react to things. When they are hungry, they eat. When their bladder is full, they urinate. So they are just reacting to things. But the difference that humans have is that they can do that, and they can also respond to bodily needs, not just react, but to respond. And in order to respond, you need to be aware of that. So this awareness is not a thing that is, you have to learn from somewhere. We are intuitively born with that skill. It's just sometimes, because of our mind again, we have the ability to come up with stories and ideas and give value to things. And then we forget that awareness.
I've had a few people ask me, is Buddhism a philosophy or a religion? What do you think?
You could say Buddhism has been around for 2,500 years. So it started as a philosophy, but then now you could say it's a religion. And the reason being that it's like it has that snowball effect. As it rolls down the hill of time, it catches on a lot of things, traditions, requirements of the contemporary society. Like, let's say that even if it's a philosophy, a war goes on in that particular country. So then people need to have certain elements which are psychologically responding to that wartime. So then you need to absorb that for the philosophy to go on, right? So it has become a religion now, but it also has the philosophical things preserved beautifully, and it's also a practice which can be incorporated in daily life. One could say it's just a way of life.
Who's the Buddha for you?
So Buddha, for me, is a state of mind. A lot of people would like to personify a Buddha, sort of anthropomorphize like a god. But the way I see Buddha, because I don't want to picture what Buddha looked like, no one could do that. I don't want to even put a name or a face to, like a physical character to that. To me, Buddha represents a state of mind of being liberated from your own shackles in your mind. So that's Buddha to me.
But there must have been a historical person who you might think of as a Buddha. Who is he to you then?
Right. So the historical Buddha that we find, especially in Theravada Buddhism, it's dating back to 2,500 years ago, 500 BC. The exact date of origin is a little, you're not sure about history most of the time, but there's about 100-year gap between the 2 days. But he lived between 500 to 400 BC. And he was born to the northern parts of India for a regional ruling family. So he was called the Prince Siddhartha. And Prince Siddhartha had a spiritual journey, a beautiful spiritual journey. And I think it started again since his childhood, where at the age of 29, he became an ascetic and joined the tradition of minimalistic ascetics, which was a tradition in that time India called the Shramana movement or Pravurja, which is basically a monk. So a monk or the ascetics predates Buddha. In fact, it belongs to this beautiful time period in the world called the axial period. The axial period. Yeah, it's a beautiful time. Pretty much most of the philosophical traditions that we know comes or stems from around that period, where Plato, Aristotle were there in the symposiums in Greek, in Roman Empire. And then Buddha, the Upanishads, a bunch of them appeared during that time, Jain Mahavira. And on the Far East, there was Lao Tzu and Confucius. So beautiful enlightenment age, axial age. So Buddha was born into that beautiful period. Almost like where there was John the Baptist before Jesus. Right. The Upanishads, they cleared, or they rather made a nice platform for philosophies to exist. A lot of very diverse philosophies in Upanishad. They are not the same. So you can't even find one Hinduism. It's a bunch of very different philosophies. So Buddha was born into that period, and then he had this journey. So he went into this extreme form of asceticism, where he did not eat, drink for many days and was in meditation for many weeks, almost to a point where he fainted and fell down. But then he found out that that's one extreme. That's one thing you could try. That's not going to give you liberation. So he found the path of middle, or not going into an extreme, but rather being out of the extreme and getting out of your own conditions of mind. So at the age of 35, he claimed that I am liberated, I am Buddha. So since then he started going around telling his understanding. Well, he didn't really go out to evangelize people, but people came to him. They asked, "What is your philosophy? What's your practice?" So there was a lot of discussions, a bunch of discussions we find in the Pali Canon. He lived to the age of 80, up to 80, and then he passed away. But what you would find is that Buddha, at the time of his Buddhahood, he was not very popular. He wasn't the most popular religion in the Indian area. 300 years post Buddha's passing away, there was an emperor called Emperor Ashok, who sort of unified the modern India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, that region. He unified that entire geographical region. So he was a Buddhist. So then he started spreading Buddhism into a lot of other countries.
About 300 years after.
300 years after.
Oh, that's interesting, because you find in Christianity, for example, Constantine, right, which is
Correct.
about 300 years after.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is what I see. Sometimes when politicians get into the mix, the philosophy goes on a different tangent. I think it happened with Jesus, it happened with Buddha also. So it takes a different shape and form. That's why I said it had to respond to the politics, the economical situation, the warfare which is going on and all that. It had to adjust. Also when Buddhism traveled to other countries, like when it went to the West, so you can't go to China by going towards east because there's a huge Himalayan mountain from India. So it had to go towards west, the modern day Afghanistan, which was called Gandhara, and they had to go through Mongolia behind the mountain all the way to China. So it took that Silk Route. Or it had to come down to Sri Lanka on a ship or a boat, and then go to Malacca, the Strait of Malacca, which is the modern day Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, that area. So every time it went to a different region, it absorbed some of the regional values, regional belief systems. So you see Gunnin, the future Buddha or a Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva of compassion in the Chinese Buddhism, you would find a very similar character called Nuwa, a Chinese goddess who's the Mother Earth in the Chinese region. The same way Sri Lankans have a sacred tree, a Bodhi tree, a peepal tree, which is a very sacred item in the Sri Lankan or the Theravada Buddhism in Thailand, Cambodia. But then you would also see that Sri Lanka has been very animistic when Buddhism arrived during Ashoka's time. So Buddhism had to incorporate certain animistic practices into the propagation.
It's interesting with the tree motif, actually, too. It's pretty widespread. You think about something like Odin's tree that he was pierced to with a spear. You have, when I was in Africa, they had sacred trees in their villages. And in a way, even within something like the Christian faith, you have, the idea of the cross as a kind of tree.
Right.
Right. It's interesting.
And there's the tree of life.
The tree of life. Yeah, that's right. Yes, in Genesis.
And the forbidden tree.
Yeah. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the other one, I think, is the tree of life.
Right.
Yeah, which they were not allowed to eat from. What is karma?
Karma in Hinduism means that, we'll have to go to the backdrop where the Buddhism was laid, which is based on Vedic traditions. Vedic traditions are what we called Hinduism, but it's not one single thing. It's a bunch of different philosophical ideas. But there was this one fundamental idea at the time that everyone has a spirit in their core. but they don't really recognize the spirit. They recognize me as my body or as my mind. But beyond the body and the mind, there's a spirit. So the common reference, body, mind, spirit, the Trinity. So according to the Hindu belief that the spirit would transmigrate in the time, it would not perish, it would not wither, it would just go on forever. But in this going, you would be reborn. There's rebirth, and then you could be reborn again. You're a human. You can be a dog. You can be a cat, a beaver, and then return as a human. So it's a sort of a cyclical thing. So this cyclical thing was called the samsara. So in this samsara, as you go, you do things. You do good things, you do bad things. And the good things have good repercussions, bad things have bad repercussions. So commonly in the common usage of karma is that the repercussion of good or bad, what you have done. So imagine that there's a bank account and there's debit and credit. So you have a balance, a karmic balance, and whatever, wherever you're going to be born is based on your karmic balance, and whatever you're going to get is based on your karmic balance. But Buddhism has a different interpretation of karma. According to Buddha, the literal etymological meaning of karma is action. And according to Buddha, the karma is your intention. What you think is karma. Buddha did not completely subscribe to that model of good and bad repercussions transmigrating from one life to other. In fact, the proper word for that would be Pubbe Kata Hetuvada. There's a Sanskrit Pali term called previous action affecting your modern or current and the future life. So in terms of Buddhist karma, it's the intention. It's your action. Intention will decide what you're going to talk, what is your speech going to be, what is your action going to be. So it's the intention in Buddhism, not the action per se.
So is there then a notion of reincarnation in Buddhism?
So this is where the religious Buddhism and the philosophical Buddhism will be different. If you ask a typical Buddhist, are you going to get reincarnated? For sure that I'm going to be reincarnated. That's true. But if you go to the more philosophical and especially early Buddhism, you would find that Buddha has disappointed a lot of people but not giving an answer. Why? Because Buddha would ask, why are you asking that question? And why do you say so? Do you have evidence to say so? Are you just believing in that? And if you are believing in that, how did you come to this belief? Is it because your parents told you? Is it because your logic said that's the case? Why? So it's rather than answering a question, it's going to the root of the question, which a lot of people don't like because they would like to have a concrete answer. Tell me what exactly happened. So if you look at early Buddhism, especially the early Buddhist scripture, you would find this is not a answerable question. Rather, you are invited to ask, why are you asking that question? So I sort of evaded that question. So these are sort of in line with the agnostic ideas. We have beliefs, we have come to that belief, but epistemologically, what is your right to say that this is? So, check that, examine that.
Right. And that's related in some way, I guess, to intention.
Intention, correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's another notion in Buddhism, in English, impermanence. What is an impermanence within the Buddhist way of thinking?
Right. So again, sort of related to what we discussed, we find different streams or approaches in the world which are looking at different things. Like science, modern day classical science is a very ontological approach to the nature of the reality. What is this made out of? Is it hydrogen, oxygen, ammonium, or whatever? But you find a bunch of other approaches which are more epistemological, where you are invited to look at your conscious experience, the limitation of your knowledge, and your fundamental nature of being in terms of your experience. So Buddhism, Hinduism again tends to fall on that aspect, where you are looking at who am I, why am I thinking this way, and what am I really? What is the nature of me? So impermanence in Buddhism is really looking into this nature of the mind. But the word impermanence also can be attributed to the ontological reality that pretty much everything that we see in the world is impermanent. It's a matter of our timeline. If we see long enough, everything is going to eventually change into something else. You take the carbon atom, carbon 14, you can date it because it has a long shelf life or a half life, but even that is going to be impermanent. So no matter what you find in the nature, everything has an impermanence. But in Buddhism, this is the impermanence of your thought, not of the physical nature of the world, but more of the impermanence of your thought process. So thoughts are continuously changing, almost like the Niagara River. The Niagara is not a single Niagara, it's a stream of changing water molecules.
All is flux, sounds like
Exactly.
Heraclitus.
All is flux. All is flux.
What is the Buddhist, what is your orientation towards death then? What does death mean to you?
Just another day.
Just another day.
Just another day, yeah. But it's very interesting. When I said just another day, we are dying every moment. When we sleep, we almost die. Yeah, so death happens to people every day. Our thoughts die every second. So, for example, I'm thinking of ice cream, eating an ice cream. Suddenly that thought dies. And then now I'm thinking about a flower. So, death happens every time. So, with the fundamental nature of impermanence, there's the nature of dying of that thought and changing it to something else so that you move on. So, death is viewed that way in more philosophical Buddhism, but being a chaplain also, you have all the other things with associated with death. How do you console people? How do you help them to accept the reality that eventually you are going to die, etc., etc. So, from a pastoral chaplain point of view, people come across death. Just a while ago, I met someone who's almost 70 plus, recovered from a very rare form of cancer. He was supposed to die only a 5% chance, but he recovered from that, and he was telling me his story. When you look into these stories of people who have not feared death and recovered, you find that very simple thing that they accept this nature that you are going to die. But a lot of us, we have this natural rejection of the idea that we are going to die. So Buddhism really reminds you that, guess what? You're going to die. Because of the same reason, sometimes it can be looked as very nihilistic. Why are you always talking about death, which is bad? Because let's avoid that topic. But then everything is subjected to impermanence. I offer this beautiful flower to Buddha, but it's going to wither away in 1 week. It's the very nature of things. So don't be so upset about it. Accept it gracefully. So in terms of pastoral chaplaincy, that's what we do. We remind people that while you have to, face that, be upset, it's very normal. Still, eventually, you will find great comfort and solace when you accept it.
And what actually happens after death? Is there any kind of ideas or notions about, post-death experiences, or is the philosophical Buddhist perspective that that's the end?
So to that idea, one way of thinking about what would happen to you after you die is that you keep going, you transmigrate. So it could be either you are in a cyclical nature, you keep coming back, or you go into a more permanent nature like eternal hell or eternal heaven. The other idea is that you cease to exist, you are just food for the worms, and you go to dust and wind and water. That's it, the discontinuation. But both these ideas are two ideas. One is the opposite of the other. Why do we need to have an answer for this idea? It's a very fundamental question that we need answers. We are very uncomfortable not knowing. But how do we become comfortable without knowing? So Buddhism asks you to go that way rather than giving you an answer. Okay, this is which is going to happen. But now, having said that, in the religious Buddhism, you would find that well, like Hinduism, when you die, you get reincarnated. So live a good life, do good things, so that you'll be reincarnated in a better place. In fact, there's this idea where, especially people when they get old, when they pass their youth and adult days, they get very afraid. What is going to happen to me? Am I going to be reborn in a bad realm, in a bad place? And they come to me, you are a monk, tell us what to do. We really need to, we only have a few years now. We see the runway getting shorter. Tell us what to do. So then I tell them, well, I don't have a formula for you to not be born in another bad realm. But I'll tell you this, I will tell you, regardless of which realm you go to, you can enjoy that realm. I can teach you that. So like the previous question you asked, when you're at a cave or whether you're at a good restaurant or a fancy hotel, you can be happy anywhere or you can be sad anywhere. And it's mastering that skill of not being either.
So maybe on to another topic other than death. Although that is an interesting topic. I mean, a lot of people are curious, ask the question, what happens when we die? And it becomes an important part of their kind of journey, I suppose you could say, trying to figure that out. And each of, world religion seems to have its own answer to that question. But so I find that topic kind of fascinating myself.
Maybe I can add one last thing on that topic.
Yeah.
That question is it's a big question. It's a fundamental question of many generations, many cultures. What would happen to me after? But if you think of it this way, a lot of people would have the fear what might happen to me, or they would be very regretful that I didn't live my life enough here on the earth. Now I'm going to leave this place and I'm going to probably migrate to a different place. But then if you live here now properly, if you are completely content and extremely happy and peaceful in the now, you wouldn't have that question, what's going to happen next? It's because our now is very uncomfortable, discomforting. We have this great fear or the great greed to make the next moment better. But if you can live the moment the most peaceful manner, you would not have that question. So rather than having an answer to a question, what if the question is not valid to begin with?
Right. And that would be a great experiment to run, trying to be happy now. I asked you earlier about, if you had heard about the Walk for Peace that the monks are doing in the States. I was just going to ask what your thoughts were about that, and from a Buddhist perspective, maybe about their motivation and their aims.
So it's a beautiful gesture, I think, and I really like the fact that the monks don't try to explain a lot, try to preach a lot. They are just walking and they just spread this very simple message. Let's be peaceful. Let's be kind to each other. Let's understand each other. And there's this beautiful dog. I think everyone loves a little dog, Aloka. A beautiful story behind that dog. So I think it's a good message. Like that incident where we were at the church right after the incident, sometimes you don't have to do a lot. You just have to be there, be present. And I think people are really appreciating that the group of monks walking. And again, that walking is a traditional way of life for the Buddhist monks. So when in the jungle, I had to come down to the nearest village for about 7 kilometers. So up and down, it's 14 kilometers. So you are anyway walking a lot as a monk, as a forest monk especially. Not so much in the towns anymore, but it has been a tradition for the monks.
Wow. I remember reading somewhere that I guess one of the head monks or the leader of the group, he's not wearing any shoes. Right. And maybe some of the others aren't either. But why would they not be wearing footwear, do you think?
Practically, I have walked across the jungles for about 90 kilometers at one go, like over 2.5, 3 days.
Wow.
So what happens is when you have really good footwear, so I'm talking about not Canada, but in the tropical Sri Lanka, through the forest, sometimes you find walking through the forest without footwear is the easiest. Because if you wear a slipper or a bad shoe, it's going to give you that
Right.
burn and
Blisters.
blisters, right? But our body is naturally designed to walk without footwear. I mean, we've been walking for 2 million years pretty much without footwear until the last 1,000 or 2,000 years maybe. Of course, footwear helps, but then if you're not in a rush, if you're not going to war, if you have enough time, you can walk mindfully, peacefully, without footwear. So that has been a tradition, and a lot of people ask, can you stick to those traditions when you in the modern age? Sometimes maybe not. Now, being in Canada, monks are only allowed to have 2 sets of these robes. But now I have to have a coat. I have to have
Right.
thermal wear, 2 different types of boots one for minus
cold.
40. It's cold here, so sometimes we need to adjust and adapt. And the human technology is different now. We have different ways. But again, if you live in the nature, you would find living without anything makes you so much closer to the nature. And especially when I stay in a jungle for an extended period, like 3 months, 6 months, and when you come out and start staying inside the house, you feel, what have we done? It's so beautiful to live under the nature, under a tree or by a river. And by coming inside, we have really crammed ourselves into a very artificial space, and then we are wearing footwear, wearing all this protective gear, which is good, which is there to protect ourselves from different things. But then there's also great beauty in being very natural.
I've heard that along the route of the Peace Walk, there have been some churches that have opened themselves up to letting the monks stay, at their church or on their property and things like that. What is the relationship between Buddhism and other religions?
Buddha was always a proponent of be very courteous, friendly, and polite to the religion. And I truly feel that. I'll be traveling to India in a few days, and every time I go there, it's a bunch of different faith traditions, from Sikhs to Hindus, the yogis, Christians, Muslims, and it's like a club. All the churches in this region in Waterloo, they accept me there because we are in the same club. We are the priest and the monks, chaplains, pastors, or the spiritual people who are on a path of spirituality. So there's this great camaraderie, even if you belong to a different faith tradition. There's still a lot of openness. So Buddha was very open-minded that way. He would go to different places. Sometimes he would even have very extended long chats. Sometimes it's just for tea. That's it. But that cordial friendship was always maintained among religions. So out of most world religions, Buddhism has least probably problems with the other faith traditions, because it's really okay. We live among diversity.
Well, we'll end on that. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me for the podcast, and I really appreciate hearing your perspective on Buddhism. Maybe I'll have you back sometime. I'm sure I'll have some people asking me to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. This is wonderful. And this is the way we greet sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah.
May all of you, may all the listeners, we have this fantastic saying Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta, which means not only Jeremy, your family, the listeners, and everyone, the humans, the animals, all beings in all dimensions and all realms, may they be happy, may they be peaceful, may they be blissful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.